Hi, everyone. This is Liz Hyde with Carolina Hoop Scoop. For many years, I've been wanting to conduct interviews with former players at Carolina to be able to share with our listeners here at Carolina Hoop Scoop. And recently, I had an opportunity come up to interview not just anybody, but my very favorite player, Mike O'Corin, who played back in the late 70s and had a terrific career. And I got to talk with Mike recently. We had a terrific interview. I'm so pleased to be able to bring this to you. It is in two parts, and I hope you will enjoy it. Okay, here's our first part of interview with Mike O'Corin. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. This is Liz Hyde with Carolina Hoop Scoop, and we are so happy to have our first guest on the program, one of my all-time favorite, definitely my all-time favorite player, Mike O'Corin. You all have heard me talk about this before, about how much I have enjoyed watching him, and I'm just delighted to have him be our very first former player interview. So welcome, Mike, to the program.
Well, Liz, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, Mike played for Carolina back starting, was it fall of 76 when you began?
76, yes,
Yeah.
to 80, yeah.
1980, right. And Mike was a two-time consensus All-American, which is amazing, and a three-time All-ACC player, which is great, and all kinds of other accolades, I'm sure. You have your number hanging in the rafter, your jersey, right?
Yes, that's right, Liz. I'm very proud of that, too, with all the other guys that are up there.
I bet you are. Did you have a ceremony with that at all?
No, a lot of years back, maybe 15, 18 years ago, they brought all the players back, and they had a little ceremony out there for the guys. And they gave them their jersey again, which was very nice.
Oh.
And it was when Coach Smith was healthy, and it was good to see him and all the guys that did come back. It's always fun when that happens, Liz.
Oh, definitely. Do you sometimes see your number up there during games? There's
so many now. It's hard. They'll go up. They'll show the camera sometimes watching the game, and you might get it, you might not.
Yeah.
So it's fair game up there.
There are a lot of talented players, honestly, and I know you're delighted to be part of the whole Carolina family, that sticks together and all that. A lot of talent coming through Carolina.
Yeah, it was always good when I was in the league, and you'd go when I was a ball player or a coach, and you'd go to another city, and there'd be a guy that you either played with, from Carolina, or a guy that you always watched, like Mitch Kupchak. I never played with him, but he's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Or Bobby Jones, who I never played with. It was always good to see those guys again, and it is a Carolina thing, man. We all bleed that blue, and it was always good to see guys out there.
That's awesome. I think it's one of the best parts of our program, honestly. Sets us apart. I read a statistic that may need to be updated now, but about you, saying that as of 2013, you were the only Carolina player to have at least 1,500 points, 800 rebounds, 300 assists, 183 steals, and a field goal percentage of 57.2. That's just incredible, Mike.
Well, thank you, but I think a lot of it was we had such great players, and we were always taught to say, always be a team game. But a lot of guys came in and played 1 or 2 years and then left.
That's true. Yeah.
So a lot of those stats stayed up there. Those guys that have played 4 years like I did, I think they would have went right by me.
That I guess you're right in that, but it's still a fantastic statistic. And speaking of the 4 years, back when you were playing, were people allowed to jump to the NBA early, or was that forbidden at that point?
No, you were allowed to. Only a certain number of guys, like maybe 2 or 3 guys, did it. A guy I played with in the pros, Darryl Dawkins, did it out of high school in Orlando. And a name I know you'll recognize, Moses Malone, also.
Yes.
And he was probably the first guy to do it and really made a name for himself.
Did you ever think about doing it yourself?
No. Coach Smith always had a good eye on that. If he thought you would be up there with a top pick, he'd recommend maybe you go.
Yeah.
But I was having too much fun in college to leave.
I think you did.
If I was going to make the pros, it was going to be after 4 years, and I would take my chances. But I was never going to leave Carolina that early.
Well, I was going to say, I'm awfully glad you stayed 4 years, and that's one of the things that I miss now. I think we all do as fans, is that we don't get the 4-year experience of the buildup of getting to see the development year by year and getting to know the players. You know,
Right.
They're gone before long, and we certainly wish them well, and I can't blame them for wanting to jump, but I do miss that 4-year experience.
I agree with you. I'm a little torn on it too. You can't blame the kids if they want to go out and they want to make money.
Yeah.
You know, and play a game that they love to play. But I also can't fault them if they want to stay in school. So
No.
if it's the right thing to do, you do it for yourself. If not, then just that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, do you still get to watch a lot of Carolina games?
Yeah, I love to watch the Tar Heels play, especially the other night when they beat Duke. You know, it's
Wasn't
always
that
fun to see
awesome?
that.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I get into the games. Sometimes I got to get away. I think my blood pressure goes up. I always rather play the game than watch the game. But
Yeah.
it's always fun to watch. I wish we could get this pandemic behind us, where the students could get there, and obviously the fans for any school for that matter.
I know. I know.
It's always better with the place, the Dean Dome, whatever, being full, or Carmichael back in my day. It was always fun to see that.
I know. I even kind of miss the Cameron Crazies, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they make it interesting. I mean, it really is a great place to play over there, too. The
I
way
bet
those
you have
guys
a lot
get
of fun
into it.
memories of being there, don't you? For playing at
Yeah, I do. I took my lumps over there, too, as far as the way they got on me and Chicky Honecker. So.
Did they? Aw.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
were
know
tough
like
on
to
us.
pick on someone. Yeah. And of course, your friend Jim Spanarkel that you grew up with was there.
Yeah,
right?
Jim and I were high school teammates for 3 years. Jim's a year ahead of me, and he goes to Duke, and then I go to Carolina. We have great battles with the Duke Carolina teams back when we were there, and Jim's a good friend to this day.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And I've seen he's had some success with broadcasting as well, which is good to see him still. Yeah.
Yeah, any game you turn on I see a Jim Spanarkel doing a game, and I see when I see the ACC games, Mike Zeminski does a ton of games. And
I know.
Me and Mike were drafted back to back in 1980, and we were teammates. So
we were teammates. That's right.
It was tough to like those guys, but you have to, right?
A little easier to like them now, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Great guys, really.
That is funny that you talk about your blood pressure going up during a game. That's part of the reason that I started taking stats, because if I'm keeping the book, I can't get as emotionally invested watching it. You know, it helps because honestly, it will get you going. And I remember Coach Smith saying that after he retired, he finally got it why fans were going so crazy and all. You know, being a fan himself, just watching the game, it's very tough, as opposed to being in the game or being able to coach it.
When you can control some of it,
right.
You know, maybe if you feel like the team needs a bucket, you go and get aggressive, maybe get fouled and get to the line and make a couple free throws. But when you watch it, you just can't do anything about it.
That's
very tough.
It is.
Very tough.
It is. It sure is. Well, Mike, I told you were a fan favorite and everything. So, as a basketball player, what 3 strengths do you think that you brought to the Carolina team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think number one, Liz, I always wanted to be a good teammate. Help a guy if he was down, or encourage a guy if he missed a couple shots, or and just be that good teammate in the locker room, on the practice floor, obviously in the games. And we had this thing in North Carolina. You wanted to play the right way. You make the next pass. Yeah. Don't force a shot. Don't take crazy shots like that. You always want to be a team player.
Right.
And I think the one thing I always wanted to do, Liz, I wanted to win the game. That's right. You want to try your best to try to win the game, because that's why you play. You want to walk out of there with a win. If you didn't, try to work hard and come back and win the next one.
That's very well said, Mike. You know, I think what I appreciated about you still to this day is the passion that you had for the game, that you would wear your heart on your sleeve, good and bad, but I never doubted how much you wanted to win, and and how much you enjoyed what you were doing, you know.
Yeah.
And that always stood out to me. And the what I miss is your assertiveness in driving to the basket, and usually getting fouled along the way, you know, and
Yeah.
coming up with the old-fashioned three-point play.
Well, that's one of my favorite stats. Whenever we would get, Coach Smith would send the blue book up, you know, with all the stats and pictures and the history of Carolina basketball. I always liked the fact that I made it to the line a lot, because if you get to the line, you're being aggressive.
That's right.
And you know, you don't have to be the tallest guy out there, the strongest guy out there. You just, you know, you work on your game and you use your body in different ways. And I always like to work the baseline. And that's how I got to the line a lot. And I wasn't the best free throw shooter. I think I averaged in the mid-70s, I think, but I wish it was a whole lot more. But I enjoyed that part of the game, that aggressive part of the game.
Absolutely. It showed. It showed. And I used to keep a scrapbook back then of all the from the Charlotte Observer and our Gastonia paper. And your picture would frequently be in there, of course, and it was almost always you driving to the basket.
That's good. That's good. That means you're playing hard, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So what, with your personality, what three things do you think you offered, well, not so much offered to the team, but just what was your personality like back in college?
I was happy-go-lucky. You know, it was just so enjoyable to be at North Carolina, be a basketball player, obviously be a student. Coach Smith would want me to say that.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, it was half full the way I looked at it, you know, and I just tried to bring that sort of philosophy to the game, and you know, that aggression we just talked about, and positivity. You know, to be positive.
And you always had fun. You found it fun.
I tried to anyway. You know, well, we had a good fun team too, and you know, whether we were down 20 or up 20, we you know, we tried to, you know, bring some smiles to everybody and ourselves. For that
well, you
matter.
certainly did. You really did. That was kind of a magical time. I thought you had such good teammates back then too. You really did.
We really did. Well, we all lived on. You said before you had lived in Granville Towers, and you know, the basketball team lived up there on the third floor, and we were together a lot, and you know, we roomed together, and you know, obviously during the season, we were together all the time.
Yeah.
You know, between practice and going back, eating together, and you know, going back, and you were so tired, you didn't really want to do anything during the season. So we were always together, and it's a good thing we got along, because if we didn't, that would have been bad, right?
And it would have showed. Yeah, it would have.
Yeah.
It would have. Well, let's take it back a little ways.
Okay.
Your basketball history. When did you start playing as a kid?
Well, I started in grade school, you know, in Jersey City. My first sports love was actually baseball. I love baseball. I love Mickey Mantle, who played for the Yankees. And being from New Jersey, we had no New Jersey team, so we rooted for the New York teams.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to play baseball, but I had a growth spurt where I was kind of the tallest kid around. So a couple, you know, my friends had me play basketball, and I kind of liked basketball. You can play, you can get better, you know, individually. You didn't need, like in baseball, you need a lot of guys to play. In basketball, you just could go to the courtyard, schoolyard, and play and get better. Yeah. And that's what I did. And I really got liking it, and you know, started to be somewhat successful. So I stayed with it. You know. Did any of your family play at all? In the past? I have an older brother, older sister. They didn't. My sister was a cheerleader back. She's a little older than I am, you know, to high school. And my brother never played, but my brother was the brains behind the family, more or less. You know, especially when I was being recruited, he really helped me, and among other things too. But no, he never played, but he was a smart one.
Well, when did you start realizing that maybe you could, you know, have a collegiate career and a post career kind of thing?
Well, I played in high school. I wasn't bad, and then like we talked about before, I played. I was a year behind Jim Spinarkle, and a lot of college coaches would come to watch Jim play.
Ah, yeah.
And they didn't have the scouting the way they have it now. And word got around, well, Jim's a very good player, but there's a kid behind him that's not bad either.
Yeah.
I think that's how I got, you know, started to see scouts come to see me also. And when Carolina came up, Eddie Fogel was the first coach I spoke to from North Carolina. I really liked Coach Fogel; was a great guy.
Oh yeah.
And then then Coach Guthridge would come. We only had Coach Guthridge and Coach Smith when I was coming out. Roy wasn't there yet.
Oh, okay.
And then they were just great, and you could tell the decision really came down to what your heart said, Liz. It wasn't, you could ask me a million questions about why did you pick Carolina.
Yeah.
And it really, everything was great. The coaching staff, the facilities, the school itself, all that stuff. But your heart kind of says, this is the place for me, and that's what happened on my behalf.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you that. Did when you were growing up, did you have a school in mind that you wanted to go to?
I always thought I would go to Notre Dame.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, as a kid growing up,
yeah.
Notre Dame. Yeah, I'm a Catholic all the way, and Notre Dame was great basketball. We used to watch them sometimes on Saturday afternoons, especially the year they beat UCLA when Dwight Clay hit a shot in the caddy corner there and won the game from against Bill Walton. They had won 90 games in a row with some UCLA. They were so dominant back then. This is maybe when I was first or second year in high school, and loved Notre Dame then, and watched them play. And then so all of a sudden we watched Carolina play, and they came to New York once, and we went over and watched them, and they were just playing the way they were defensively, and then they came on the radar. And something that my friends, I never really noticed it, but my friends always liked the V-neck shirts. Think about that. That was one of the reasons why we really liked North Carolina, because of the V-neck jersey. You'll never hear that, I bet.
Probably not. Well, I always like the shorter shorts, to be honest with you, too.
You don't see those anymore, but.
So what was the recruiting process like for you then?
Well, again, my brother, he would kid with me. He says, it's up to you. You'd go to 100 schools. I had a hard time saying no to people. So my brother really got involved with my recruiting. And I would say to him, listen, Ron, there's no way I'm going here, there, or the other place. And so we just knocked that out. And my mother's an old-fashioned Italian woman, believe it or not. And she never really understood recruiting. So once I knew a handful of schools, we just said we're down to 5, and it was very early in the recruiting process. And then I made my visits, and I knew after that it was over. I wanted to go to North Carolina. We called them right up after that and told the other schools no, and said, yes, we'd love to come to North Carolina. And that was that.
So that's awesome. So what other schools were wanting you?
I made 4. Well, Carolina, I made 4 other visits. I went down to Duke. I went to Notre Dame. I went to Kentucky, and I went to South Carolina.
Wow.
With Frank McGuire was the coach there.
Well, I'm glad you ended up where you did. That's great.
Yeah, and that was that. Yeah, we've done it. I had my whole senior year where I was out of the way. I knew I was going to go to Carolina. They wanted me. I wanted them, and I could concentrate on my senior year in high school.
That's awesome. So did you have players that you looked up to at that point?
Actually, my favorite player was Mickey Bell. And I got to meet him on a recruiting visit, and we're friends to this day, actually. I haven't talked to him in a while, but
that's awesome.
I love Mickey Bell, and he's a great guy and all that. And I remember saying, could I wear 31? And he said, yeah, you can wear it. And after it's funny, I'd see him after I was done, and I was in the pros or whatever, and I said, Mickey, there's no more points left in that uniform. I said, we did it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember Mickey very well.
Do you really? Yeah, he's a great guy. Great guy.
So how did you end up with number 31 then?
Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, they just gave it to me.
They gave it to you. I didn't know if it was something that you were allowed to choose.
No, I don't think I didn't. Coach Smith, I don't think would ever allow that. No, I don't think anybody picked a number.
Really?
I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe Michael Jordan did. Michael Corrin did. So.
Well, you had a great team with Phil and Walter Davis, Tom Lagarde, just so many good people.
John Custer, my first year, those guys, Walter, John, and Tommy were seniors, and and Phil was a junior, and we had Bruce Buckley, who was a great player too, with us, and we just had a really good team. We had 5 or 6 freshmen come in that year who blended in pretty well, and we had a great team. As you know, we made it all the way to the final game.
I know you did.
And I'll say to this day, Liz, that Marquette was I can't say easiest, but the teams we had to play to get there were a lot better than Marquette, and it's just that they had us that night. They were a better team that night by a long shot.
I think a lot of us will feel that way. Yeah,
you just don't know. The NCAA tournament, it's tough, man.
Well, I think the added incentive of the fact that it was Al McGuire's last game.
Yeah.
I think
they were big. They were big.
Yeah.
And we weren't the biggest team then, with Tommy being out, and they really controlled it. They really controlled both backboards.
You had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, we did.
But
that's the way. Again, that's no excuse. That's the way it goes.
It's what happens. Yeah. So, did you start as a freshman?
Yes, I did. I was at the time only the second freshman to start their first game. Phil Ford was the first.
Is that right? I knew it wasn't often that happened. So.
No.
I couldn't.
Now it happens all the time. They only play 1 year now.
I know, no kidding. Yeah. But back then it was a big deal, though. It was.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. Something for you to remember too. Let's see. So, any favorite game that you can recall?
Boy, there's a lot that pan out. My first year was in the semifinals against Vegas, and I scored 31 that day. But it wasn't only that; it was just the moment. It was the semifinals. Vegas was. I'll tell you what I said about Marquette. This game against Vegas, they were the toughest team we played that year.
Were they?
And if there was a 3-point shot list, they would have beat us. They would have beat us by 15.
Wow.
They were really. I mean, they played an up-tempo game. They were good defensively. They could shoot the ball. They had a deep bench for the most part, and I don't know how we beat them.
They had a great year. They had,
They really did. I think if we didn't get them, they would have won the championship. They were that good.
And it was a very enjoyable game too, overall. And I always thought it was cool that as a freshman you scored your number. That was really cool.
Well, I have to say, though, it was mostly layups and tremendous passes by Phil Ford and John Custer. I mean, those guys made the game easy. They really did.
Were you allowed to dunk back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Yeah. Was that one of your...
They changed the rule maybe a year or two before I got into college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was that in your arsenal? I can't remember that.
Not really. If I was alone, maybe I'd let it go, but if there were people around, like we talked about before, maybe I'd try to get a little contact, get fouled.
Yeah.
No, the dunking really wasn't a big thing back then. You dunk the ball, and that was that. Now they dunk it, they go crazy, they flex their muscles, they do everything now.
Yeah, definitely.
So different.
Well, I think another great game that you had was at home against Duke, where you just went crazy with rebounding. You had 20 rebounds in one game.
Yeah. Well, they were a good team. My first year, Duke was down. But then they got Gene Banks and Jaminski was going into a second year. They had Spinarco already. They had a guy named Kenny Denard who was a really tough player. And Bob Bender, they got 2 transfers. So they were really good. And Duke was starting to really become a good rivalry game. And I always was a pretty good rebounder in college. But to get 20 means that our defense must have been good because there was a lot of shots to go after.
Yeah. Well, it's just outstanding. You also, in that game, had 17 points, 7 assists, and 4 steals. So that was a big thing for you.
We tried to, you asked me about, what did you do well? I would say I really didn't do anything great, but I did a lot of things pretty well.
Yeah.
And that a game like that would show that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good teammate, too, and it fits in with the Dean Smith system of, being an unselfish player, too.
Exactly.
Now, in the final game against Marquette, which, I had my feelings about it, too, at the end, you ended up fouling out, right?
Yeah. It was one of those games where we were down, you had a foul, and I didn't care. I mean, whoever was going to come in for me was going to do as well, too. So you had to hack to try to see if they would. The only thing is they never really missed their free throws that game. They were uncanny from the line.
Wow.
If we could have got a couple misses, maybe we could have snuck out with a victory there. But they made them, and I did foul out the game.
Yeah.
That's your question. Yeah.
Well, and I think back, there's an iconic iconic photo of you, where you're on the bench and Walter Davis is consoling you. What was going through your mind at that point?
Well, you work so hard. You work so hard to get to that position, and you lose.
Yeah.
Mistakes,
Yeah.
We talked about before. Why do you play? Of course, to play. To win the championship, and you have a chance. It's so hard to get there, and it was just a lot of emotion came out. To be honest, I was very happy for a competitor that night. His name was Jimmy Boylan.
Yeah.
Who we grew up together, played the same courts together. Played a lot with each other over the years, and I was happy for him. But it was an emotion that got the best of me. And Walter was such a great leader, a great senior leader. I was sitting next to him, put his arm around me, told me, everything's going to be okay and all that stuff. And, and in a way, I wish that picture never made it out.
Well, I think it showed the compassionate side of you, and like I said, the passion that you played with the game, you felt it both ways, getting excited about things and also, it being hurtful sometimes and hard. And but we were all upset, You just kind of personified it for us.
Yeah, and we made a heck of a comeback that game. We got down big. Marquette played terrific.
You had a much better second half. Yeah.
Yeah, we after 4 or 5 minutes, we came back from, I think, 12 down and tied it.
Yeah.
It might even have taken the lead. I forget now. It's been so long.
I think that was, at that time, Dean Smith hadn't won a national championship, and there was a big monkey on his back, basically. I know he didn't feel that way, but everybody wanted to win it for him, I'm sure.
Exactly. I think and when they won in '82, he had the best line. Coach Smith did. I forget who. He might have said it to Coach Guthridge, or someone asked him, "You won the championship," and he said something to the effect of, "I'm no better coach after this game than I was before the game." He had the best line. I'll tell you what.
He did.
He really did. Really did.
Okay, so that concludes the first part of our interview with Mike O'Koren. Thank you for listening to Carolina Hoop Scoop. Be sure to join us for the second part of our interview, where Mike will talk about his relationship with Dean Smith and his life at Carolina and then the NBA. Thanks for listening to Carolina Hoop Scoop.